morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to our weekly review of how religion impacts humanity. This week's headlines. A Vatican judge charges a cardinal and 9 others with financial crimes. A top US Catholic Church official resigns after cell phone data was used to track him on Grindr and to gay bars. British values were undermined by an Islamic school's anti-gay book. Another Baptist youth pastor is accused of sexual abuse. A curfew is imposed in Afghanistan as Taliban militants advance. Hatun Tash was stabbed by a Muslim at Speaker's Corner in London. A man admits sharing Islamic State beheading videos. A Christian nurse spreads misinformation. Christian Greek Orthodox still carries out exorcism. A Christmas church celebration was held in July in Dunstable. This week has provided several items of Roman Catholic news, so I put you in the capable hands of our Roman Catholic correspondent, Jason Sylvester.
I'm Jason Sylvester, aka Diogenes of Maybury, bringing you the Catholic Report for the week of July 25th. Today, it was announced that former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick will face criminal sex abuse charges. McCarrick was the Archbishop of Washington, D.C. from 2001 to 6 and is the highest-ranking U.S. Catholic to face charges. Pope Francis launched a 2-year investigation into McCarrick in 2017, and in 2019 McCarrick was dismissed from the priesthood. One wonders why the Vatican has taken 2 more years to file charges after dismissing McCarrick for sex crimes, allowing him to live freely though secluded in a Kansas monastery. In November 2020, the Vatican released its report on how McCarrick was able to rise through the ranks despite allegations going back decades. In a refreshing whiff of honesty, the report finds that Pope John Paul II was told of abuses, but he chose to believe the bishops, who concealed information, and his successor Benedict rejected an investigation due to, quote, no credible allegations of child abuse. In a further rare glimpse of Vatican honesty, the report acknowledges investigations were of a, quote, limited nature. In other news, yet another cardinal, the former Deputy Secretary of State, makes a roundup this week with the start of his trial for financial crimes including extortion, embezzlement, money laundering, and abuse of office. The trial, held in the Vatican museums, deals with charges of embezzling €350 million for a failed property venture in Chelsea, including funneling money, some from donations to the church, to the Cardinal's brothers in Sardinia. Finally, last week, Monsignor Jeffrey Burrell, the General Secretary of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, resigned after Catholic media exposed his Grindr usage. The late Richard Sipe, a Catholic counselor whose research indicates half of clergy are involved in sexual relations, clearly demonstrates Vatican policy on celibacy is not working. The secular community encourages people to own their truth, and this correspondent wishes the Catholic Church would stop demonizing homosexuality based on Scripture. That's your Catholic Report for the week of July 25th. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Jason. Now, according to the Office for Standards in Education, leaders of a Muslim boarding school undermined British values by allowing its library to stock a book calling for homosexual people to be punished. The book, Islam on Homosexuality, was found during a visit to the Islamic Institute of Education. Ofsted said it included inappropriate content which was unsuitable for pupils. Excerpts from the text, which had been stamped as an official library book by the school, included sections on punishments of individuals because of their sexuality. The report noted, there is also a paragraph in the book entitled Putting to Death. In this paragraph, there is a statement, the evildoers should be put to death. In the States, Jeff Bedwell, of Chetts Creek Church, a multi-campus Southern Baptist megachurch in Florida, is being held on a $500,000 bond in Duval County Jail after he was charged on 4 counts of illicit sexual contact with a young girl. The arrest report charges him with the transmission of materials harmful to minors, 1 count of unlawful sexual activity, 1 count of lewd and lascivious molestation of a minor between the age of 12 and 16, and 1 count of sexual battery on a girl between the age of 12 and 16. Senior Pastor Spike Hogan said, "Chetts Creek was shocked and devastated to learn of the charges made against a former member of its staff. Jeff Bedwell's employment was terminated more than 2 years ago for unrelated issues. Right now, our primary focus is to pray for any person who has been harmed and support them in any way they need. Please pray with us as we are once again reminded that we live in a dark world that needs help and hope that only God can bring." The Afghan government imposed a month-long curfew across almost all of the country on Saturday in a bid to stop the Taliban from invading cities. Fighting between the Taliban and Afghan government forces has increased over the past 2 months as international troops pull out of the country. The militant group is thought to have captured up to half of all territory. As US forces have withdrawn, the Taliban have made rapid gains, retaking border crossings and rural areas. There are concerns that with peace talks moving slowly, the focus of fighting will increasingly turn to more heavily populated urban centers. That has prompted a top American commander to say the US will continue carrying out airstrikes in support of Afghan troops. General Kenneth McKenzie said a Taliban victory was not inevitable. The Taliban, a fundamentalist Islamic militia who were pushed out of power by the US invasion nearly 20 years ago, have also seized key roads as they seek to cut off supply routes. Their fighters have been closing in on a number of major cities, but have not yet been able to capture one. This video from the BBC is our longer feature this week. A warning, it is distressing to watch, but it should be seen by more viewers.
Afghans are running from bullets and bombs. They're caught between government forces and hardline Islamist Taliban insurgents as US and NATO forces leave. Tens of thousands of people are fleeing a surge in violence. They're scared, hungry, and homeless in 45-degree heat. I'm in a camp for people displaced because of the fighting in Afghanistan. This is the city of Kunduz in a province by the same name. The whole province is now controlled by the Taliban except the capital. And there's been intense fighting around the edges of this city and just on the in the districts beyond it as well. People rush to us to tell us their stories. It's nearly impossible to count how many they've lost. Naz Bibi said 6 of her family were killed a few weeks ago, including her husband and 4 sons. War is devastating people across the country as the Taliban gain more territory every day. Nasima's husband, 2 daughters, and a son were killed when a mortar hit their home. Niamatullah is malnourished, she said. Her other son, Juma Khan, barely spoke. He has shrapnel injuries and struggled to walk. They're among hundreds who've had to run for their lives more than once. Binafsha Bibi fled from her rural district to the White Bridge area of Kunduz city. Then that got bombed too. All of her 3 sons were killed. We went to White Bridge, where Binafsha fled from. We saw signs of battle and found evidence that a part of the city is no longer under the control of these soldiers. This is a position of the Afghan government forces, and then just across the bridge, on the other side there, is territory controlled by the Taliban. We're in the city of Kunduz, but in recent weeks, this has become a front line. The spaces that people can run to for safety are shrinking every day here. Just minutes before we arrived here, a bomb blew up a fuel tanker. No one was hurt in this attack, but there was no way for us to tell what's happening just a mile from here. We heard sounds of mortars and gunfire for hours every day. It's hard for anyone to count just how many are dying or being injured in the violence. Many aren't able to get to medical care. Still, in hospitals like this one, the main provincial hospital in the city of Kunduz, I'm told that 90% of the cases they're seeing are those who've been injured in the fighting. All critical care beds in this hospital are full. Abdul Rahman was caught up in an explosion when he went to get fodder for his family's goats. 14 years old, he's lost a hand and has serious injuries to his abdomen and leg.
This patient condition is very poor.
6-year-old Mariam has a bullet lodged in her spine, hit as she and her family ran into their home to hide when a gun battle broke out. So the bullet is still lodged inside the spine?
Yeah.
She'll survive, Dr. Khair Mohammed told me, but she won't be able to walk.
Have not sensation.
Even the hospital was hit by mortars a few days ago, he said.
And then, of course, aid is not enough.
More than half of Afghanistan's people need immediate aid to just survive, according to the UN.
Afghanistan needs everything. It needs more than it ever needed it before, and it needs it now. I have served 27 years with the United Nations. This is one of the worst crises we have seen, and it has a potential to get even worse than it is right now.
Why should the world be concerned about what's happening here?
Afghanistan matters. Afghanistan matters for the world. It matters for the world's security. It matters for the world well-being. Don't forget it now. Don't think it is not your problem.
Many here feel abandoned by their government and departing foreign troops.
بی‌مسئولانه و بدون تفاهم‌نامه که اینا امضا قرارداد کرده بودن یک دفعه افغانستان را ترک کردن. حالا می‌بینید که در حالت جنگ است افغانستان، در حالت بدبختی، مردم بیچاره از فقر است، طفل است، یاسر است، کلگی بیجای شدن، کسی به داد اینا نمیرسه.
Outside the camp, a new family arrived, but there was no space for them. Even the fragile safety of a makeshift tent is hard to find.
Hatun Tash, a brave critic of Islam, just got stabbed by a terrorist Speaker's Corner, Hyde Park, London.
Hatun Tash, who is a speaker and a regular debater at Speaker's Corner in the UK, was just stabbed. Apparently because she was speaking against Islam and because she was wearing a Charlie Hebdo shirt for solidarity with the right to draw cartoons.
You two come today, man. I think you'll be this. Oh, whoa. Man, I think you'll be this. Oh, whoa. They're just speaking to Wallah, Speaker's Corner is a mad place, you know, wallahi.
Hatun has been attacked many times before. She's very outspoken, very brave when it comes to criticizing Islam and speaking up for the right to criticize Islam in a country where free speech is supposed to exist, and at a spot, Speaker's Corner, where people are supposed to have the most controversial discussions. I asked that people close to her please set up a GoFundMe fundraiser. I would invite everybody to support her for what happened. She's been attacked many times, and this time she's been stabbed. This is very serious. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this, but people who keep calling her and others like her names and who keep calling people enemies of Islam are responsible for this. Stop calling people enemies of Islam. Stop justifying violence and punishments against people who do not agree with Islam, who leave Islam, who criticize Islam, who offend Islam. If you think such brutal hate and violence is justified against people who disagree with your religion or who hurt your poor feelings, then you are in the wrong place. You should get the f*** out and live in some different country. I'm not sure about the laws in the UK, but I think it should be quite similar, that if people engage in inflammatory speech and justifications of hate and violence against certain individuals, and then people who listen to them actually commit violence against those individuals, then those speakers can be held responsible for inciting and causing the violence. Maybe people should now be aware of how serious this situation is and take action, legal action, make complaints against people who justify violence, who talk about how we deserve to be punished and executed. Stop calling people enemies of Islam. This is your fault, your responsibility. If you want to distance yourself from this, condemn the people and change the way you speak, or get out. Be quiet. Please show your support for Hatun right now. She deserves it. Stay.
Thank you, Apostate Prophet, a French YouTuber. A British man who went to Syria to join the Islamic State group has admitted sharing beheading videos. Stefan Aristidou, 27, entered guilty pleas to 4 terrorism offences at the Old Bailey and will be sentenced in September. BBC research reveals he is the 14th person convicted of terror charges out of hundreds who returned from Syria after joining jihadist groups. The research shows only 3% of returnees have been convicted of such offences. Aristidou, from Enfield in North London, travelled to Syria in April 2015 with Kulsoma Begum, whom he had married shortly before. The pair were reported missing by concerned family members. Aristidou, who is of Cypriot origin, is a convert to Islam. The couple spent time living in Raqqa, then the capital of Islamic State's self-declared caliphate, and had a baby while living in Syria. Still in the UK, listeners were horrified last weekend by a former nurse spreading misinformation about vaccines. Listen to this report from the BBC Radio 4 Today programme.
There was widespread horror over the weekend at the comments of a former nurse, Kate Shimirani, at an anti-vax rally in London. Among other things, she told the small but enthusiastic crowd was at the Nuremberg trials, the doctors and nurses stood trial and they hung. The Mayor of London is among those wanting the police to look at what she said. The Royal College of Nursing said it could put nurses at risk. Is the right thing to do to prosecute, to publicise Ms. Shirami and many others like her, or is it to do the opposite, to ignore them? Okay, let us turn to Sebastian Shimirani, who is Kate Shimirani's son and is on the line. Good morning to you.
Hello.
What do you think should happen to your mother now?
Well, I think she would be prosecuted under existing laws, or if there aren't existing laws in place that say that what she's doing is illegal, then we should be having a national conversation about what laws we should be bringing in and drafting up legislation for that, because it's only a matter of time before, as Mariana just discussed, somebody acts on the bad advice that she's giving the country.
Is there any way of someone in her family getting to her? And I'm thinking, I suppose, of her, but also of others who make these remarks, who make these calls, and reasoning with them, arguing with them. Is she beyond that?
I wouldn't say that most people who believe these ideas are beyond it. It might take a number of years, but you eventually cool down from the initial radical period and you start listening to people around you more. But my mum is definitely beyond help. The problem is that because she's so arrogant in her worldview and really truly believes that she is a conduit for the truth on a spiritual level, not just a scientific level, but she's been anointed by God or some other higher power, she thinks that she shouldn't have to listen to people like us. And every time I've tried to argue with her, either in a nice, calm, rational way where I just ask her questions and try and get her own argument into knots, or if I just straight up disagree and say you're wrong, either way, she will end up getting irate at me and saying that I'm arrogant and that I don't listen to her. So it's impossible to talk to somebody when they've got that level of God complex.
I mean, what she said has appalled many people, and obviously many people who work in the health service. But there is also, we were talking with Mariana there about social media. There is a sense, isn't there, of a duty of care to these people. I mean, there is a mental health side to this as well.
But I think we should prioritise the things which we understand and are the most obvious solutions for this. Somebody can look after my mum's mental health after she has stopped influencing tens of thousands of people to do violence to innocent people in this country. So there's kind of a triage effect here, right? We need to sort out the biggest problems first, and then we can talk about mental health.
Do you have any contact with her now?
I saw her a couple of months ago. That was just to go home and deal with some other personal business. But otherwise, I left home when I was 17. I'm now 22. I try and avoid as much contact with her as possible. I'll just get a couple of conspiracy-related text messages every few months.
Sebastian Shimirani, thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Now, please enjoy this video of a Christian Greek Orthodox exorcism.
Если батюшка возьмут на святую Горлоху, в Иерусалим, да, батюшка?
Люди добрые, спасите меня! Бог благословил нашу Анвицию. В Иерусалиме уже мы были.
Выхожу. Слава Богу.
Бог, давайте на руки ваши понесу. Надо вести, так.
Слава Богу.
Не скажу. Не скажу. Не скажу, повезу лучше. Давай.
Выходить не хочет, лучше повезти домой.
Да, на Иерусалиме. Да что ты меня снимаешь? Снимай меня. Мама, спаси меня.
Безов нет, мама.
Надо сделать остановку. Бог, нажми на тормоза. На Иерусалим. Дорога Господнего. Нет. Согласен. Давай. Не выйду. А куда ты едешь?
На пасхальную службу, да, батюшка?
Ты уже вышел. Ты уже вышел. Ты уже вышел. Не выйду. Вышел? Не выйду. Как знаю. Не знаю. Не знаю. Это тормоза, давай.
Еще один дурила смеется. Вот колокольный звон. Видите? Вот колокольный звон, говорю, да? Да? Бочку бесит. Так хотя бы раз было.
Мама, успокойтесь. Мама, я тебя сейчас фонариком высу. Господи, я
Помогает.
Давай, колокольный! Давай, колокольный, надо лететь. Ой, брат! Люди, куда вы приехали? Это унижение прав человека.
Бесовский. Европейский, это Бесовский.
Finally, a Christmas celebration, complete with carols and mince pies, has taken place in the middle of the summer for people who missed out on traditional services in December 2020. It was organised by the Reverend Rachel Phillips, there she is, of the church, the Priory Church of St. Peter in Dunstable, Bedfordshire. The Church of England rector maintains that Christmas is not just for Christmas. We celebrated as Dunstable has never done before, she said. Well, of course it hasn't. It was July. Stay tuned on this channel for the live Q&A Stay tuned on this channel for the live Q&A show Free Thought Hour. My guest this week is ex-pastor turned atheist blogger Bruce Gorenser. He has an interesting story to tell. This will be starting in a few minutes. We will be back with our weekly news review on all our platforms at the same time next week. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, set the notifications, etc. Thank you for watching.